This is heresy against all our teaching. Elder Norith's voice resonated through the council chamber, his aged tendrils waving in agitation. The circular room, carved from living crystal and bathed in the light of dawn, held 12 Velari elders seated in a perfect circle. Ilyana stood at the center alongside Jorith, feeling distinctly alien among these beings whose skin glowed with internal light. We propose introducing artificial constructs into the sacred vessel of the body, Norith continued, addressing the other elders more than the human doctor. For millennia, the Velari have healed through balance and natural remedies. Now this outsider would have us abandon our ways. Ilyana stepped forward, the datapad in her hands displaying complex molecular structures. With respect, Elder Norith, I'm not asking you to abandon your beliefs. I'm offering a bridge between our knowledge and yours. She gestured to the display, which showed the nanites she had modified with Jorith's help. These microscopic helpers are partly grown from Velari cellular material. They're designed to work with your natural healing processes, not replace them. Another elder Vithera, whom Jorith had described as more progressive, leaned forward. How can you be certain they won't cause greater harm? Our physiology is unlike anything on your world. That's precisely why we've spent 3 days adapting and testing, Ilyana replied, nodding toward Jorith. Your chief healer has verified every aspect of the treatment. Jorith stepped beside her, his shoulder almost touching hers. The subtle warmth radiating from his form gave her courage. I have witnessed the simulations and examined the construct designs, he addressed his elders, voice steady despite the cultural taboo he was challenging. They incorporate elements of our traditional healing compounds. This is not replacement but enhancement, evolution, not abandonment. Murmurs rippled through the council. Ilyana could sense the division forming between fear of the unknown and desperation to save their dying people. Even if what you say is true, Elder Norith countered, testing such a treatment on one of our kind without proven success is. My mother volunteers. Thalier's voice, unexpectedly clear and determined, cut through the chamber. All eyes turned to the small Velari child who had entered unnoticed, standing with remarkable dignity despite his youth. Thalier Jorith began gently, "This is not the place." "It is exactly the place," the child responded with wisdom beyond his years. "You debate while she suffers, you speak of tradition while our people die." He turned to face the elders directly. "My mother wishes to try the human's cure. She told me so this morning in one of her few lucid moments." Ilyana felt her throat tighten with emotion. She hadn't known Vila had experienced consciousness today. Her condition had been deteriorating rapidly. "The child speaks truth," came a weak voice from the entrance. Leaning heavily against a support pillar stood Vila herself, her once vibrant form now diminished, tremors visibly racing through her body. Two attendants rushed to support her. "I choose this path," Vila managed, each word clearly costing her great effort. "If not for me, then for what my body might teach to save others." The council chamber fell silent. Even Elder Norith seemed shaken by the sight of Vila's determination. "The choosing law is absolute," Elder Vithara finally stated. "If Vila consciously chooses this treatment, we cannot forbid it." The vote that followed was narrow, 7-5 in favor of allowing the experimental treatment. As the council dispersed, Elder North approached Ilyana, his ancient eyes seeming to look through her rather than at her. "If she dies from your intervention rather than the disease," he said quietly, "our people's fragile trust in humans dies with her." Hours later, in the treatment chamber Jorith had prepared, Ilyana carefully programmed the final parameters into the nanite delivery system. The room had been adapted according to her specifications, but maintained Velari healing elements. Crystals positioned to refract light in specific patterns, sacred waters infused with traditional medicines. "A true bridging of approaches," Jorith observed, watching her work. "Neither purely human nor purely Velari." "The best solutions often come from combining perspectives," Ilyana replied, looking up to meet his gaze. Something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding that transcended their biological differences. The moment was interrupted as Vila was brought in, Thalier walking steadfastly by her side. The child had refused to be separated from his mother, and after much discussion, Ilyana had agreed he could remain during the procedure. "The nanites will target the infected neural pathways," Ilyana explained as Vila was settled onto the treatment platform. "They'll repair damage where possible and create bypasses where necessary. You'll likely experience unusual sensations as your neural network reconfigures." Vila's trembling hand reached for hers. "Will it hurt?" The question caught Ilyana off guard, not because of its content, but because it was so fundamentally universal. In that moment, despite the alien features before her, she saw simply a patient, a mother afraid yet brave. There will be discomfort, she answered honestly, but we've incorporated pain management into the process. Jorith positioned himself at the head of the platform, tendrils gently resting on Vila's temples in what Ileana had learned was a traditional healing stance. His eyes met Ileana's and he nodded once. We begin, he said simply. As Ileana activated the delivery system, the specially designed nanites entered Vila's system through a mist that she inhaled. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly Vila's body arched upward, her skin flaring with intense bioluminescence. What's happening? Thalia cried, moving forward only to be gently held back by one of Jorith's free tendrils. The nanites are mapping her neural pathways, Ileana explained, monitoring the readings on her equipment. It's overwhelming her sensory system temporarily. What she didn't say was that the reaction was far more intense than she had anticipated. The simulations hadn't predicted this level of response. For a moment, doubt clouded her mind. Had she miscalculated? Was Elder North right to fear this intervention? Jorith must have sensed her uncertainty. Without breaking his healing stance, one of his tendrils extended to brush against her hand, a gesture of reassurance that sent an unexpected tingle up her arm. Trust the process, he murmured, trust yourself. For 42 minutes, Vila's body alternated between intense luminescent flares and periods of complete stillness. Ileana's monitors showed the nanites working as designed, repairing damaged pathways and creating new connections where damage was too severe to repair. Finally, as Solara 7's second sun began to set, casting the room in amber light, Vila's tremors, the constant shaking that had plagued her for weeks, gradually subsided. Thalia was the first to notice. Look, he whispered, pointing to his mother's now steady hands. Ileana checked her readings, hardly daring to hope. The primary neural pathways are stabilizing, the nanites are completing their programmed tasks and becoming dormant. She looked up at Jorith, unable to hide the mixture of relief and elation she felt. I think it's working. Vila's eyes fluttered open, and Ileana gasped. The Valeri woman's irises, previously a soft golden color, now shimmered with an iridescent quality never before seen in her species. I can see, Vila whispered, her voice stronger than it had been in days. I can see the light, differently, more deeply, as though I'm perceiving spectrums that were always hidden before. Jorith's expression showed both wonder and concern. The treatment has changed her in ways we didn't anticipate. Before either could contemplate the implications further, the chamber door burst open. Elder North stood there, flanked by two other council members. We've received reports of unprecedented energy readings from this room, he said accusingly. Then his eyes fell on Vila, conscious, stable, and transformed. His expression shifted from anger to disbelief. The tremors, he said, they've stopped. Yes, Ileana confirmed, stepping protectively closer to her patient. The treatment was successful. But at what cost? Elder North whispered, staring at Vila's changed eyes. What has she become? As the room filled with a mixture of wonder, fear, and the first tentative strands of hope, Ileana realized they had crossed a threshold from which there would be no return, for Vila, for the Valeri people, and perhaps for herself as well. Night had fallen over the Valeri settlement, the bioluminescent structures pulsing with a rhythmic glow that matched the heartbeat of their inhabitants. In the observation chamber adjacent to the treatment room, Ileana studied Vila's readings with growing concern. 12 hours had passed since the treatment, and while the tremors had ceased completely, other changes were manifesting at an alarming rate. Her neural activity is exponentially increasing, Ileana murmured, more to herself than to Jorith, who stood beside her. It's as though the nanites have unlocked neural pathways that were dormant before. Is it dangerous? Jorith asked, his tendrils gently tracing the holographic display of Vila's brain patterns. His proximity sent a warmth through Ileana that she found increasingly difficult to ignore. I don't know, she admitted. This goes beyond anything in our medical records. The nanites were supposed to repair and then become inert, but they're continuing to adapt her neural structure. Through the observation window, they could see Vila resting peacefully, her skin emitting subtle pulses of light in patterns Jorith had never seen before. Thalia sat curled beside his mother's bed, finally asleep after refusing to leave her side. We should wake her, Jorith suggested. Ask her what she's experiencing. Ileana hesitated. Medical protocol says to let her rest, but these aren't exactly standard circumstances. Before they could decide, Vila's eyes opened, those new, iridescent eyes that seemed to see beyond normal perception. She turned her head directly toward them, though the observation window was supposed to be one way. She shouldn't be able to see us, Jorith whispered. Vila smiled and raised her hand in greeting, then gestured for them to enter. Inside the treatment room, Ileana immediately began checking Vila's vitals. How are you feeling? Connected, Vila replied, her voice carrying a new harmonic quality. I can sense the light flowing through the settlement through each Velari. It's, she searched for words, like suddenly hearing when you've been deaf all your life. Jorith's tendrils flared with concern. You can sense other Velari at what distance? The entire settlement at least, Vila said calmly. Perhaps further, I haven't tried extending my awareness. Ileana and Jorith exchanged alarmed glances. The nanites had done far more than repair neural damage. They had somehow amplified the Velari's natural photosynthetic communication abilities to unprecedented levels. May I? Ileana asked, holding up her scanner. When Vila nodded, she began a detailed neural mapping. The results made her breath catch. The nanites have integrated with your neural tissue, she explained, showing the display to both Velari. They're not just repairing your pathways, they're creating new ones, expanding your ability to process light-based information. Is it dangerous? Vila asked, unconsciously echoing Jorith's earlier question. Ileana hesitated. Honestly, I don't know, this is uncharted territory. She took Vila's hand, an oddly intimate gesture across species. How does it feel? Any pain, disorientation, memory issues? No pain, Vila answered. But there is intensity, sometimes overwhelming. I can feel the light patterns of everyone here. Her free hand rested gently on her sleeping child's head, especially Thalier's, so bright, so pure. The intimacy of the moment made Ileana acutely aware of her outsider status. This connection between Velari was something she could never fully understand, never experience. The thought brought an unexpected pang of loneliness. Jorith must have sensed her emotional shift. His tendril lightly brushed her shoulder, a gesture of inclusion that made her look up in surprise. You've given us something remarkable, he said softly, even if it wasn't what we expected. A commotion outside interrupted them. Elder Norith's voice could be heard demanding entry, along with what sounded like several guards. They fear what they don't understand, Vila said calmly, sitting up straighter. And they're right to be cautious. I am something new. The door slid open, and Elder Norith entered with 4 Velari guards. His eyes widened at the sight of Vila sitting up, clearly recovered and transformed. The council demands a full report, he announced, though his authoritative tone was undermined by the uncertainty in his eyes. And containment protocols must be. I am not a threat, Elder, Vila interrupted, her voice carrying that new resonant quality. Merely changed. To everyone's shock, Elder Norith suddenly swayed on his feet, his tendrils drooping. What are you doing? He gasped. Vila looked alarmed. I didn't mean to. Ileana's scanner revealed the truth. She's emitting a photosynthetic communication pattern on a frequency that's affecting your neural pathways, she told the elder. It's involuntary, she doesn't know how to control it yet. Witchcraft, one of the guards exclaimed, raising what appeared to be a ceremonial weapon. No, Jorith moved protectively in front of both Vila and Ileana. This is science, not magic. Lower your weapon. The tense standoff was broken by a small voice. Stop, Thalier cried, suddenly awake and distressed. Don't hurt my mother. What happened next would forever change the course of Velari history. As the child's cry echoed through the room, Vila's entire body flared with intense light. A wave of visible energy pulsed outward from her, washing over everyone present. Ileana felt it as a tingling warmth, but its effect on the Velari was profound. Every one of them, Jorith, Elder Norith, the guards, froze in place, their eyes widening as if seeing something remarkable. I can feel them, Vila whispered, wonder and fear mingling in her voice. Their thoughts, their emotions, and they can feel mine. For nearly a minute, the Velari remained locked in this silent communion. Then, gradually, the connection faded. Elder Norith was the first to recover, sinking to his knees before Vila. Forgive us, he said, his voice trembling. We did not understand. The guards lowered their weapons. One by one, they backed out of the room, their expressions a mixture of awe and fear. When they had gone, Ileana rushed to Vila's side. The Velari woman had collapsed back onto her bed, exhausted by the energetic output. What just happened? Ileana demanded, scanning frantically for signs of neural damage. It was Jorith who answered, his voice hushed with reverence. She shared herself with us completely, her thoughts, her experiences of the treatment, her new perceptions. He looked at Ileana with new understanding, and her feelings about you, her gratitude, her trust. Ileana felt heat rise to her cheeks. Is she all right? Tired, Vila murmured, her eyes fluttering, but whole. As Thalier climbed back onto the bed to curl protectively beside his mother, Jorith guided Ileana to the far corner of the room. What she did, what she can now do, it's unprecedented. he whispered urgently. The ability to share consciousness across multiple Velari simultaneously. Our legends speak of such abilities in our ancient ancestors, but they've been considered myths for millennia. The nanites must have unlocked latent genetic potential, Ileana theorized, her scientific mind racing despite her exhaustion. We should run a full genetic comparison with your historical records. That's not what concerns me most right now, Jorith said, his tendrils lightly encircling her wrist. The contact sent a current of something like electricity through her skin. What concerns me is you. Me, Ileana asked, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. In the shared consciousness, I felt Vila's experience of the treatment. I felt. He hesitated, searching for words. Your presence in her mind as you guided the nanites, your determination, your compassion. His voice dropped lower. And I felt my own emotions reflected back at me through her perception. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken possibilities. Ileana found herself acutely conscious of his alien beauty, the subtle patterns of light beneath his skin, the depths of his eyes. What emotions? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering, Jorith raised one tendril to her face, tracing the outline of her cheek with exquisite gentleness. Where he touched, a tingling warmth spread through her skin. Our peoples have more in common than differences, he said softly. We both seek connection, understanding, companionship. The moment hung suspended between them, two beings from different worlds, drawn together by circumstance and something deeper neither could fully name. A soft chime from Ileana's communicator broke the spell. Commander Paz's voice filled the room. Dr. Mercer, we've detected unusual energy signatures from your location. Report status immediately. Reality crashed back around her. She was a doctor with a mission, with responsibilities to her patient, to the Velari people, to her own command. I need to report what's happened, she said, reluctantly stepping back from Jorith's touch. They need to know about Vila's transformation, about the possibilities this creates. Jorith nodded, composing himself. Of course, and I must inform the council. They will want to evaluate the implications for our treatment protocols. As they parted ways, each to their respective duties, Ileana felt as though some threshold had been approached but not yet crossed. A boundary between worlds, between species, between professional duty and personal desire. What neither of them realized was that Vila, despite her apparent exhaustion, was watching them with her new, perceptive eyes, seeing the patterns of light and emotion flowing between them that even they themselves didn't fully recognize. 2 weeks had transformed the Velari settlement. Where once crystalline structures had stood dulled by disease and despair, now they gleamed with renewed vitality. The squares and pathways that had been eerily empty were filled with Velari going about their daily lives, their skin glowing with health. Ileana stood on a high balcony overlooking it all, her heart full of conflicting emotions. The modified nanite treatment had been successfully administered to over 500 infected Velari, with a 97% success rate. The epidemic that had threatened to extinguish an entire species was being pushed back, one patient at a time. Quite a view, isn't it? Commander Paz said, joining her at the railing. He had finally come planetside yesterday after the quarantine restrictions had been partially lifted. You've accomplished something remarkable here, Doctor. We all did, Ileana corrected, thinking of her research team on the Hippocrates, of Jorith and his healers who had worked tirelessly alongside her. It was truly a collaborative effort. Nevertheless, Paz continued, Stellar Medical Command is impressed. They're already talking about commendations, promotions. He paused, studying her. But that's not why you look troubled. Ileana sighed. After years serving together, Paz could read her too well. It's the side effects. We still don't fully understand the neural transformations. Below them, a group of treated Velari moved through the square in perfect synchronization, their movements like a dance choreographed by a single mind. The enhanced neural connectivity, what the Velari were now calling the shared light, was spreading throughout their society, creating new forms of communication and cooperation. The council calls it evolution, Ileana continued. But I can't help wondering if we've fundamentally altered their development as a species. Would they have preferred extinction? Paz asked simply. Before she could answer, the door to the balcony slid open. Thalia bounded in, his movements more fluid and graceful than when she had first met him. Behind him walked Vila, her transformed eyes gleaming with that now familiar iridescence. Dr. Ileana, Thalia called, rushing to embrace her. Despite all the changes, he was still very much a child in his affections. We've been looking for you everywhere. Ileana knelt to return the hug, smiling despite her inner turmoil. I've been reviewing treatment data with Commander Paz. She nodded toward her superior officer, who acknowledged Vila with respect. I'll leave you to your visitors, Paz said diplomatically. The transport leaves at sundown, Dr. Mercer. Make your preparations accordingly. As he departed, Ileana felt a pang of what could only be described as homesickness, though whether for Earth or for here, she couldn't quite say. You're leaving? Thalia asked, his luminescence dimming with distress. My mission was to stop the epidemic, Ileana explained gently. And we've done that. The treatment protocols are established now. Your own healers can continue the work. Vila stepped forward, her movements carrying that ethereal quality all the treated Velari now possessed. We had hoped you might stay longer, she said, her harmonically enhanced voice carrying undercurrents of meaning Ileana couldn't fully grasp. There is still much to learn about the treatment, about us. A pause. About you. Something in Vila's tone made Ileana wonder just how much the enhanced Velari could perceive of others' emotions. Had her conflicted feelings been so transparent? Where is Jorith? She asked, trying to sound casual. She hadn't seen the chief healer since yesterday's council meeting, where the elders had formally recognized the success of the treatment program. Preparing your farewell ceremony, Vila answered with what looked suspiciously like a knowing smile. It is our custom to honor those who have brought great change to our people. Great change, Ileana echoed softly. That's what worries me. Vila's expression grew serious. Come, she said, extending her hand. Before you decide to leave, there is something you should see. The sacred grove lay at the heart of the settlement, a place where crystalline formations and living plant matter had grown together over millennia to form a cathedral-like space. Shafts of light from Silara Seven's twin suns filtered through translucent crystal, creating rainbow patterns across the ground. As Ileana entered behind Vila and Thalia, she gasped. The grove was filled with Velari, at least 100 of them, arranged in concentric circles. In the center stood Jorith, his head bowed in what appeared to be deep concentration. What's happening? Ileana whispered. Communion, Vila answered simply. Watch. At some unseen signal, every Velari in the grove began to glow with increasing intensity. Then, like a wave rippling outward from Jorith at the center, patterns of light flowed from one being to another, connecting them all in luminescent threads. The effect was breathtaking, a living network of light and consciousness, sharing thoughts and emotions freely. This is what your treatment has given us, Vila said softly. Not just life, but deeper connection than we've ever known. It's beautiful, Ileana admitted, but aren't you concerned? Such rapid neural evolution. We don't know where it might lead. Vila smiled. Change always brings uncertainty, but now we face that uncertainty together, truly together, in a way we never could before. As they watched, Jorith looked up and caught sight of Ileana. Even from a distance, she could see his expression brighten. He said something to the elders nearest him, then made his way through the gathered Velari toward her. You came, he said when he reached them, his voice warm with pleasure. Vila thought I should see this before I leave, Ileana explained. Something flickered across Jorith's features, disappointment quickly masked. Then your decision is made, you return to your ship today. Before she could answer, a commotion at the grove's entrance drew their attention. Elder Norith was hurrying toward them, his usually dignified pace abandoned in apparent urgency. Chief Healer, he called to Jorith. We've received a distress signal from the Western settlement. The virus has mutated, it's affecting even those previously treated. The news hit Ileana like a physical blow. That's not possible, she said. The nanites should prevent reinfection. Nevertheless, Elder Norith insisted, they report 12 cases with new symptoms, not tremors but neural shutdown, complete sensory darkness. The opposite of the enhanced perception the treatment had created, a cruel inversion. Ileana's mind raced through the implications. I need to see the affected patients, she said immediately. If the virus has adapted to counter our treatment, we need.